All right, I'm the 570 limo, still working on, I got to finish pulling the frame back and square it up a little bit and attach the back half of the frame to the extension. Things are going along good, but got a new part in the mail and I'm super excited. So I just want to show it to you first, and you know what, I think I'm just going to go ahead and put these on tonight. So just got my Super ATV 4-inch billet portals. These things are going to be awesome. They had a 15% off sale the other day, so I went ahead and picked them up. Got the billet ones for less than the normal price of the cast ones. They are going on this 570 limo. I got the 30% gear reduction, which is quite low because I'm only running a 30-inch tire currently. But it gives me room to upgrade to a bigger tire later on, 32, 35, whatever it is. But I went with the 30% because of the added weight of the machine. From the extension, gonna have heavier roll cage, more seats, more everything in it, and still running the 570 engine, which is like right at 46 horsepower, I think it is, about 5 horsepower less than the 800 was. But I figured they built an 800 and a 4-seater. That's why I'm doing this, because I love my 570s. So super excited, gonna get these things put on, and I'll go through the process of tearing off this stock suspension and getting these portals put on. All right, I'm just gonna go right by the instructions here. First part of the instructions. We're going to remove the axle nut and the pins, the tie rods from the knuckles, remove the brake calipers, remove the steering knuckle and the hubs, and also going to be removing this entire brake line here because they include 2 new brake lines with the kit. Gotta love these cordless impacts. Now I'm going to tuck this up out of the way so I don't stretch that brake line or anything. Go ahead and put the bolts back in the caliper. That may not have been the correct way to do it, but whatever. It's off. Sweet. On to the next step. Okay, I've made my way over here to my handy dandy Harbor Freight press here. And I'm using the, I'm going to go ahead and use the M12. I'm going to go ahead and use the M12 by 1.5 studs because I have a set of 2014 Razor XP wheels that I'm putting on there that run the the M12 studs, and I don't want to have to run an adapter or anything. So I'm just going to take the press, take a little brass punch. You could just use this punch with a hammer if you want, but I'm just going to go ahead and use the press and use the brass and press these things in. One nice thing Super ATV does for you is these parts are fairly well labeled. I mean, the instructions don't say the big long part number of which side goes where, whatever, but you can figure it out. There'll be an L or an R for left or right, or an F or R for front and rear. And also, this is a complete hardware kit for both sides. So you have a front, so this F will be for front, and this R will be for rear. They include the big old giant socket that you need for the big castle nut. So pretty nice. Everything is separated and labeled so you're not fishing through parts. Next step in this is to attach the steering arm to the portal bracket. So let's go ahead and do that. Here's your portal bracket, ball joints, upper and lower ball joints. And then here's your steering arm bracket. This is going to go together here. And then with the supply bolts, just going to put this together like this and tighten it up with both bolts. Steering arm is attached to the bracket. Go ahead and slip this through and put these onto the ball joint. Maybe. Well, that was kind of a pain in the butt, but the brackets are on, the steering knuckle is on. So now it is time to put the boxes on. Alright, going to be installing the portal box onto the axle and dog and the bracket. That'll hang there on the axle. I'm going to use the supplied bolts to go ahead and bolt the box onto the bracket. Okay, this top one here, they all call for M12 bolts. This is an M12 by 130. This one takes the little narrow washer through here and into the bracket. Now the one thing I can say is I ran into a couple times so far. The powder coating on this is nice, but it makes it hard to get it through the holes. I had to, run these through the holes, actually thread them in, and I've actually knocked off a little bit of the powder coating, just adjusting, like putting the ball joints in, because the hole does shrink up a little bit with the powder coating. Okay. See, these are the bolts that go in there, but they just don't fit with that tight powder coating. On the bottom. There's another one here that goes, oh wait, some of these are flanged. That one's not flanged, that's for the other side. Flanged bolt. Non-flanged takes the washer. The rest of them are flanged. Alright, brake caliper brackets are not marked, but the picture does show the ones with the holes in the center, and I'm sure they're the only ones that line up here. But they are exactly the same. So it's not like the little stamp lettering goes on the outside or not. They have the same part number. So on they go. Oop. Let's go that way. That's it. Yeah, there we go. This threads back into where it came from. The last flange bolt goes in the bottom and out of the back. Ready to tighten this up. Oh, we have to put the recessed nut on there too. Right, the box is all on. I got all the bolts torqued down, torqued them to 60 pounds, just under 60 pounds. The instructions say 60 pounds max. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put this dust cap and gasket on. Yeah, the nice thing about the Gen 3s is this is now just a dust cap, which I've heard that's been a problem in the past, but I don't have portal experience, so this is my first ones. So I would assume that's pretty nice because all the seals are inside of this now. So I'm going to put the dust cap and gasket on with the 3 supplied socket head cap screws. And I'm going to put the brake rotor on and the castle nut. And I'm going to have to go get me a bigger torque wrench because that castle nut gets torqued to 300 pounds. 300 foot-pounds for that castle nut. start putting the dust cap and the brake rotor on. According to Super ATV, these portal rotors are directional. They want them installed with the curve going forward. So this one will actually go on the driver's side. So these little curves, the curves will go forward, and then the two ends will point backwards. So this will be the driver's side, and this will be the passenger side one, how the curve goes forward. Maybe it's cooling, maybe it's something else, but that's the way they specify that they do go on. Told you this is my first time. Forgot the recess nut for the axle. I bet that's pretty important. Now, I haven't seen any thread locker in the kit, but I may have missed it, but fortunately I keep some anyway. You don't want to put some blue thread locker like Loctite or whatever onto this recessed nut to put it in there. What size is that nut? That nut is a 30 millimeter. I have the other one here, pair of calipers, 30 millimeter nut. Now they give you the big old giant socket for doing this nut. But it looks like you have to supply your own 30 millimeter. Okay, boxes are on and torqued down. The brake caliper bracket. Now, in the, let's see here. On the brake caliper bracket, there's two different brackets. On the instructions, it shows this one going on the front with this center hole in there. That is wrong for the 570. For the 570, you want this solid one here. This is your front bracket. I had to pull this back off to get that caliper on there. I'm going to have to go get a torque wrench to torque this down. My torque wrench only goes to 140 pounds. I need a 300-pound torque wrench. Now I'm going to swap out the brake line and hook back up to the brake caliper and put my tie rod back in there. So once the tie rod's in and the brake line's on, this side will be done except for torquing this down and putting the cotter pin in it. One thing to take note of is your brake calipers will stay on the same side they came off of. So driver's side stays with driver's side, passenger stays with passenger. I think I've read before or seen before that you've had to switch the caliper side to side. Well, that's not so on the 570. It's either that or the way they've designed the Gen 3s, so you don't have to do that anymore. But what you will have to do is on your brake lines themselves, you will have to take your brake lines off your master cylinder. It's a 12 millimeter bolt head up there, and it's a 13 millimeter down here on the caliper. Come on, Polaris. And you're going to want this, you're going to take your passenger side brake line, and you're going to move it to the driver's side. So this used to be the passenger side brake line, which is now on the driver's side, and you are supplied with a new passenger side brake line that's much longer. You're also supplied with, I don't know what I did with it, a new, oh here it is, a new rear brake line. Now I'm assuming this is going to be for the passenger side rear, and it has just your standard brake line fitting on there instead of the banjo fitting on both ends like the front ones do. So this thing is back together, pretty straightforward. I still need to torque this nut down, put the cotter pin in there. The tie rod bolt this is so thick that you can't get the cotter key through there anymore. So you've got the bolt and the lock nut, but no key through the hole in the bolt. Is that going to be a problem? I don't know. I guess time will tell. Maybe I'll find a longer bolt, or you know what? I mean, it's a lock nut on the bottom, so maybe it'll be just fine. Anyway, I'm going to be on to the other side on the front. So this is a disassembly and assembly of the 4-inch portal on the front of the 570. I'm going to move over to the passenger side front. It's going to be exactly the same, and then we'll move on to the rear. All right, as far as the portals go on the back, pretty straightforward, just like the front. You're going to want to take off your brake caliper, undo your upper and lower A-arm mounting bolts, get your nut off of your axle shaft, and go ahead and slide the hub off of everything. And what you're going to have to do, though, is you're going to have to take your bushings from your factory hub assembly and transfer them into the portal mounting bracket. Or buy new bushings, whatever you want. But the portal mounting bracket does not come with new bushings or the metal sleeve. So you're going to want to put your bushings in there in a sleeve. I went ahead and ordered some new ones, so I put those together. Bolt those on with the axle, and then just go ahead and slide the portal box on. And same process as the front. Bolt it through, bolt the nut, and then get your rotor on and put the nut on here and the dust cap, and this side will be finished up too. So let's get this bolted on. Okay, this portal box is on. The bolts are torqued down to 60 pounds, just like the other side and the front, right onto the bracket. Now we're ready to go ahead and put the portal rotor on this and put the brake caliper back on and get this side back together. Easy enough. Oh. Got to put the extended brake line on first. Okay, portal box is on this passenger rear corner here. Rotor is on in the correct direction. Brake caliper is on. There's an included mounting bracket that you have to swap off of your factory mounting bracket and put this one on, so it bolts up to the caliper mounting bracket on the portal box. And you'll also change out your brake line. There's an included brake line with the kit, a new brake line, just like there was on the front end. And your passenger side rear will now become your driver's side rear. So you get one new brake line and you reuse a brake line. Here's something you need to know. On the brake line, the stock brake line is held in right here with this little clip. Well, that little clip is riveted into the hole, so you have to drill out that rivet to get this bracket off to put the new brake line in. And then on the next one, it's a Torx, which is a T. Oh, let's grab it here and see. Oh, I got all blurry. It is a T25 Torx. So you're gonna have to get a T25, either a real long screwdriver type one, or like I got here on a ratchet in the socket, to get this screw out for the brake line bracket to take off this passenger brake line and move it to the driver's side. Portals are on all four corners now. Like I said, straightforward on the back, just like the front. Overall, a pretty easy job altogether. Once you do one of them, you learn how it goes, and the rest of them go on real easy. what I've done is I've got these stock RZR 1000 XP wheels that I'm running on this. They came on the set of tires that I bought. So to make these work, because generally they're a 14x6 in the front and a 14x8 in the rear, well, these are a 6-1 offset or a 7-1 offset for the rear and a 5-1 offset for the front. And a lot of guys will run those, you know, the 6-inch ones on the 50-inch machine because it gives you a 14-inch wheel and keep you a 50-inch width. Well, I know I'm not 50-inch width anymore with the portals. I'm 58 with the portals. And what I've done is I like the 14x8 wheels because I'm running a 10-inch wide tire, might run a little wider tire, and I don't want the skinny wheel. So I want the 8 inches in the front and in the back, which is what I got. So what I did is I bought a 2-inch spacer, and I put the 2-inch spacer on the portal. So it comes out pretty far from that A-arm. But that 2-inch spacer essentially just gives me a little more back spacing on the rim. So now instead of a 7-1, I've got a 5-3, just like if I was to buy a 5-3 wheel, because all the weight is moved back over the portal, just like it would be if I had a 5-3 wheel. So I'm not really putting any extra stress and load on anything on the bushings or A-arms or all this, but it allows me to run a 14x8 wheel in the front also, and it clears the steering, it clears the A-arm, it clears the brakes, it clears everything. So it's going to be nice. That way I'll have that nice wide footprint all the way around, which is exactly what I want. I didn't want a real skinny tire to crown up the top of the, real skinny wheel to crown up the top of the tires real bad. I like that nice fat wide footprint, a little more traction for crawl and trail ride, and that's what I do as I mountain trail ride. So this is going to be pretty awesome, I think. Now that these are on, I got to get the other tires on here and finish doing the limo stretch. Take this thing out and take it for a ride and see what it does. These are 4-inch portals, 30% gear reduction, and I'm only running a 30-inch tire, so it's gonna be slow, which is exactly what I want. It's a 570. They top out at 58 miles an hour, which is plenty fast. So who knows what I'm gonna get now with the 30s and a 30%. I'm excited to try it. I'll fill you in when I try it, and we'll get this thing out on the trail and show you what it does. God bless you. Okay, one more thing before we wrap up this portal install. Overall, I'm really happy with it. It went together really good. I'm super excited to go out and try this thing out. But the one thing I want to just talk about is the instructions. Now, the instructions they give you, they say they're for an 800 and a 570. I think they're geared more towards the 800. They just kind of like added the word 570 to it, maybe a couple extra brackets. But you definitely, you got to look at some things a little closer. The first thing I noticed that I had to end up redoing is in the instructions here, you know, it gives you two different bracket pictures for the caliper mounting brackets. Excuse me. Gives you two different pictures for the caliper mounting brackets, and it depends on which one you're using, the 570 or the 800, I guess, because at first I went by the pictures on the instructions of which caliper mounting brackets to put on the portal boxes. So I followed the pictures, put them on, and went to install everything, and it turned out I had put on the wrong caliper mounting brackets. So I had to take them back off and then put on the other ones that were in the box. You know, all the stuff's in the box, it's just not clear of which one to use. There is a lot of extra hardware when you're done with it if you are not using the Super ATV heavy-duty tie rod ends. So that, when I got to the end of my project and I had several extra nuts left and a few pieces, I was a little concerned because, you know, as you work on things, when you do stuff, or you do a project and you have extra parts left over at the end, it's like, oh no, what did I forget? So I had to go back and reread as far as what was part of the heavy-duty tie rod kit at the end. The other things I noticed that there's really no answer to is on the recessed nut for the axle, the torque spec. There's no torque spec for putting that recessed nut on. When you put the axle through the box, you put that recessed nut on from the outside of the box. There's no torque spec. Is it factory axle torque spec? Is it
a torque spec specific to the box? What is it? Because I know like that castle nut they put on there, there's a minimum of a 300 foot-pound torque on that, which seems awfully high, but hey, whatever, it's their design and that must be what it is. And I went and torqued all the rest of my bolts on the box to, you know, not over 60 pounds, just like the instruction said. So I'm between 55 and 60 pounds. But that axle nut, that recessed axle nut, does it matter? Do you just put the Loctite on there and thread it on and snug it up, or give it one ugga-dugga, or what? I don't know. I snugged it up pretty good, and so hopefully I did it right. On the instructions also, the caliper mounting brackets are not the same as what's on a 570, even the factory brackets. They're different. So you're trying to go by the pictures and you're looking for this bracket and it's just not there. The 570 doesn't have the same thing, I guess, as the 800. You know, granted, the 570 is pretty much an 800 from the seat forward, but apparently some things have changed. Like I've heard you had to switch, when you do portals, you have to switch calipers from passenger to driver and driver to passenger. Well, that's not the case on the 570. You calipers stay right where they're at, but you will have to swap your passenger brake line to the driver, and then you get a new passenger brake line because of the length, because of the width. So just the picture being different on the brackets and not showing it clearly. The rear end, the bracket that goes on the rear end that hooks onto the A-arms for the portal box itself is not the same as the one in the picture on the instructions. Very similar, but not the same. And so when you're looking at it, and like, oh, do I have the right part? Did they send me the wrong part? Not quite sure. And then also, again, the caliper mounting bracket to the box, what the picture shows to put on is not the correct one that you need to put on. You have to put on the other one. And again, torque spec on the rear axle nut is just not even anywhere mentioned in the instructions. On the rear caliper, when you mount the rear caliper to the portal box, the bracket that it shows in the picture, this gold bracket, that's not what comes in the package of parts. It doesn't even look like that. Completely different looking thing. So again, you're left wondering, did I get the wrong parts? Do I need to get something else? You know, what's going on? But all the parts are there and it all does go on. I mean, even in the pictures, they show an 800 in the pictures. So I'm sure this package, they just added the 570 to the 800 package and send it out. I mean, it'd be really nice to see a 570 specific instruction manual, because the 570 basically has the Ranger rear end, from what I understand, and the 800 front end, but there must be a few differences in there too. But that being aside, the instructions are actually really good. I'm happy with them. I was able to get it all on. I've got some mechanical ingenuity, but all the pictures are very nicely labeled as far as what the bolts are and the fasteners. The pictures are, you know, very clear color pictures. I mean, not some blurry black and white picture like you get on some Chinese product that, you know, a third of the instructions are missing and you just got to wing it and figure it out. Not the case with Super ATV instructions. Very clear on what's there though. Hub bolting patterns for pressing in the studs. I mean, everything has been so nice, like I said, except for just those few things that are 570 specific. And it'd be nice to see that so you're not trying to figure things out or redoing work. But I'm really happy with the portals. I'm glad they're on. I love the clearance and the lift that it gives. I'm running 30-inch tires on there. I plan to go up to a 32 or a 34 eventually. But I just want to say thank you to Super ATV for putting this product out there. I've got the billet boxes. Thank you to Slick Rock Productions for putting out a lot of information on portals and just teaching people what portals are and what the insides are like, and which ones are good for which machines and tire size. I'm thrilled with that. I came from the rock crawling truck world of Blazers and Scouts, and I mean, I had built trucks and super low gear ranges and custom suspensions and all that. And these things are nice because they actually fit on the back of the truck, so I can take this and my camper and go somewhere with the kids. And crazy thing is though, these darn little toys cost more than I had in my trucks. It's nuts. But anyway, super happy with the kit, super happy to go out and try it out. I'm finishing up the limo stretch on the 570 here, so hopefully that should be done pretty soon. We're going to get this thing out on the trail, and there'll be lots more videos of this thing out on the trail of a 570 limo with portals. Pretty stinking cool. So until then, get out on the trail and enjoy your rides. God bless you.